All right. We'll get to the second topic here. I was going to talk about the Kingston Joint Declaration. I'll pull it up here. I stole this from you, Travis. You had shared this in one of your articles on Canada Haiti Info Project, the link. So I'm just going to read the Kingston Declaration Project, and I'll just ask you opinion on it. So, for those who don't know, there was a meeting in Kingston, Jamaica, I'd say about 3 weeks ago. Maybe it's been over a month now, at least. Yeah, probably a month.
Yeah, 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, 3-4 weeks. Yeah, basically just to talk about solutions for helping Haiti. It was hosted in Jamaica. During that time as well, there was this was around the time too that Andrew Holmes, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, was saying he'd be able to add some Jamaican troops to this multinational force. Meet the lead. So I'll get the declaration. So they met for 3 days, but really seems like Ariel was there for maybe one day. But I'll get to that and then I'll ask a question for Travis. So, and by the way, this is in French. I'll read it in French here, but I'll be able to translate in English for you, the important parts. Les partis politiques et les organisations de la société civile signataires de la présente, considérant la situation d'exception du pays, désirent de contribuer à l'élaboration de la résolution finale du sommet interhaïtien de Kingston. Convaincu de la nécessité de mettre fin aux souffrances endurées par les populations haïtiennes du fait des actions violentes des gangs armés. Préoccupé par les problèmes humanitaires liés au flux des déplacés internes, à la résurgence du choléra, à l'insécurité alimentaire. Alarmé par la destruction du tissu économique du pays, propose, so these, like, at this point I'm getting to the proposal. So these are what, after the meeting, these are like the main proposals that they came up with. Rétablissement d'un pouvoir exécutif, so putting back a executive power in place in Haiti, a presidential college, un gouvernement d'unité nationale dirigé par Premier ministre. So obviously a normal restoration of power with the prime minister and eventually a actual head of state, such as the president. Le gouvernement devrait satisfaire les priorités définies d'une feuille de route tenant ligne des termes de référence pour la transition. Il s'attelera à respecter les prescriptions constitutionnelles concernant la participation des femmes, so more women involvement in essentially politics as well. And then le gouvernement devrait créer les conditions nécessaires pour assurer la confiance à la population, instaurer un climat de sécurité favorable. So just making it the country more secure and making the population feel safe so they can go out and go about their days and not be stuck at home by 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So you've got the signees here, and maybe Travis, you know some of these who sign. I see AD, Claude Josette's party. I see Famille Lavalas here. PHTK signed this. Do you notice is there anyone I should mention that signed this from the signatures?
I mean, there's a New Pat Dummy, the Montana Accord. Yeah, I mean, they're all notable to a degree. Some of these.
Oh my God! Sorry, I've been reading this and not sharing it on the screen here. There you go. So for the audience that I've been reading, this is what I've been reading. This is the declaration project from posted by Senator Stephen Benoit. So this is the declaration I was reading, just so you guys can refer to it. So sorry, back to you, Travis.
Kingston Declaration. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say. I mean, those negotiations in general. El was criticized because he made one speech and then walked out of the room.
Yeah,
poured himself a drink. He had to be shamed into coming back to even attend any other meetings. And reportedly in those meetings, said straight up, there will be no like new declarations. No, I'm here to broaden my coalition, broaden the consensus under his high transition council and so on and so forth. So he had zero intention to go and negotiate anything.
Okay.
He made it clear from the beginning. There was some excitement, maybe like tepid excitement around this declaration, which has been unofficially termed, the Kingston Joint Declaration, because if you Google the Kingston Declaration, you'll get something completely different from like 15 years ago. So that term isn't easily found on Google, but you can see in that article. It's 8 political parties and a couple of civil society groups, although that's a separate conversation to discuss really what the Montana Accord is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Agreeing to a general framework that is not very different from the Montana Accord. So I don't know how significant it is. They're basically saying they want a bicameral government, which is, a president and a prime minister. They want the three branches of government restored, and they want a transitional government leading to elections. I don't see any significant difference between that and the fundamental, outline for the Montana Accord.
And no, sorry, keep going.
As to who the signatories are, it's an odd mix of parties. I mean, just the EDE right there, like Claude Joseph. We have like solidarity groups in North America protesting him anytime he shows up, understandably, because he's like mired in corruption.
Yeah.
It's a one politician party. Something that should be noted is that the declaration itself, according to the leader of UNIA, FRANÇAIS, that he's the one that initiated the declaration.
Okay.
And that should be differentiated from a coalition. They have not announced that they're in any kind of coalition. It's just the declaration.
True. I see what you
the
mean.
PHTK is in there, which, with all this sloganeering and sort of the way that things are reported on, you would be, I wouldn't like hold it against anybody to think that the PHTK and Alganavi are the same thing.
Yeah.
But the president of the party has separated himself from Alganavi for quite a while now. I'm not saying that's authentic. It might just be political maneuvering. But these other parties have chosen to sign a declaration with the PHTK and Claude Joseph, and that includes parties that are supposed to be on the left, like Famille Lavalas or UNIA or Mopad, which I believe is one of the parties that are there. And then on top of that, you have, I guess you would call them civil society groups. It's a really broad term, but NUPAP Dami is essentially the petrol challengers, the kind of leaders of the protests in 2018, younger, millennial, largely middle class kind of movement, and they're a fundamental organization in terms of bringing the Montana Accord to fruition. But they're signing separately along with the Montana Accord, which, again, like, what is the Montana Accord now? Yeah. Most of the parties who are signatories to this declaration are themselves signatories to the Montana Accord. But who's new? Like Claude Joseph is new, I think.
One of the newest, at least.
Yeah, and we're noting that the PHTK was also a signatory to the Montana Accord. So the Montana Accord, I write about them a lot, and they're led by essentially three individuals. There's James Beltis, who is a foundational member of NUPAP Dami and a petro challenger.
Okay.
There's Jacques Ted Saint Dick, who himself has more of an academic background as an economist.
Okay.
And then there's Magali Komodini, who is heavily involved in the coup against Aristide. She was part of the I'm not going to go on a tangent there, but you can read the article. It's outlined there and look up her name in terms of the coup. And she was, actively involved, not just in the coup, but in trying to jail Lavalas leaders and pursue false allegations and so on against the Lavalas leaders like Saint Just, who were left over after the coup. These are the people who are leading this like democracy movement.
Yeah. And just for our audience, guys, these are the leaders, and a lot of their names have been mentioned. Just for example, like Travis mentioned, she was heavily involved in the coup. A guy like I've mentioned it briefly in the past, a guy like Ariane Henry, for example, right after, and maybe Travis might know more about this, but right after the coup d'etat happened, he had a role into selecting was it politicians or was it selecting a new leader?
Yeah, there was like a council of the wise or a council of sages that was selected by the people who orchestrated the coup. And among those 7 people was Ariane Henry. and their job was to select. I don't want like you could say transitional government. I don't want to say transitional government. Choose a coup government, legal regime to rule Haiti. And Magadi Como Denis was one of the ministers who was selected by this Council of the Wise. So like, doesn't mean they're personal friends, but they're certainly both shoulder to shoulder as being intimately involved in the coup and the campaign afterwards to oppress and suppress Famille Lavalas and Lavalas generally.
Yeah. And just to show you guys, so like this is something that happened literally back like more than 10 years ago, and you see they still have some sort of role or influence on politics going on today, which is, I wouldn't say surprising, but it's still shocking in a sense. That, and a lot of these people, especially for a guy like Ariel Henry, I can't speak on Magri Como, but he's his main occupation is a doctor. He's a neurosurgeon, right? So for him to be still involved in this is just telling in the political landscape going in Haiti right now.
Yeah, I mean, there was I'll finish the point first. Like around Montana, it's that I made the argument several times, and I really haven't received any pushback. And the coalition behind the Montana Accord, when it was first announced, was arguably quite strong and quite broad. Hundreds of organizations, political parties, but this includes like peasants organizations, civil society groups, for some are legit and some aren't, like as in some are NED funded and some aren't. But that coalition quickly fell apart because the leadership, Como Denis and Saint Dick largely, just continually appealed to the United States for power, asking them to hand power from Ariel Henry to them. So now we're 2 years away from that. Now the coalition is done. It's pretty obvious now. I made the argument in different articles.
Yeah.
So what are they now? What does Magadi Como Denis' signature mean on this joint declaration? I don't know, but who is she representing? As far as I can tell, the Montana Accord has become a civil society group that represents a sector of the Haitian bourgeoisie. Which is exactly who they are, so it makes sense that it's devolved to that. And it speaks volumes that even New Pape Dummy feels like they need to send a separate representative to negotiate and sign on their behalf as well. Which should be noted that their representative is Jeffsky Pointsky, who himself is Petro Challenger come New Pape Dummy. He currently works for Partners Global, which is bankrolled by the State Department, George Soros, all the rest. So New Pape Dummy is completely beholden to the U.S., as is Montana Accord. So it's that much more shocking to see what are supposed to be more legitimate left of center parties like Famille Lavalas join a coalition with the likes of the PHTK and Montana Accord and New Pape Dummy.
Honestly, that's interesting too, because like you said, we've had conversations in the past, and you mentioned like what has this Montana Accord like become really? As well.
Yeah, and that's my best assessment now, because I mean, like, are they worth listening to? Do they represent anybody? Again, probably a tiny handful of bourgeoisie. I think this is a good time to pause it, because my computer is going to be forced. Forced an update in the moment.
All right, so guys, we'll be back. I'm just gonna cut off here, but we'll be back for the other parts of the discussion. Thanks, Travis. Thank you.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
All right, guys, welcome back. We just had a little short break. We're gonna go back into the Kingston Joint Declaration where we left off. So there's something that Travis wants to mention in terms of the involvement of Famille Lavalas in the Kingston Declaration and in Haiti. Travis, let us know what you're talking about.
Well, I think it's significant because Famille Lavalas as a political party, it going back in time, used to represent the vast majority of the population, at least.
And pause for a sec, just so the audience, for you guys don't know, Famille Lavalas was the party of popular President Jean-Bertrand Aristide back in the day. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's like an important distinction between Lavalas as a movement and Famille Lavalas as a political party, which I make the mistake all the time, and I think a lot of other commentators and writers do too, of like conflating the two.
Yeah.
Lavalas is a very general pro-democracy movement. It's essentially speaking to a grassroots desire for democracy and sovereignty amongst the majority of the population of Haiti.
Okay.
Whereas like Famille Lavalas is a political party, and that's the picture I sent you from the San Francisco Bay Review. It's
I'll pull it up here.
It's fair to say that Lavalas and democracy in the context of Haiti are synonyms.
Okay,
they're synonymous.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
But Famille Lavalas and democracy are not synonyms. Famille Lavalas is a political party. Famille Lavalas, headed by Jean Bertrand Aristide, if he were the leader, he undoubtedly would get a majority of votes tomorrow if there were an election, just like he would have any other year, going back to his initial election in the early 90s. He is that popular, and he has the trust of the population. But he's a single person. He's a single individual, and he has made it explicitly clear that he's stepped back from politics.
Okay.
So in his place, you have Famille Lavalas, a small political party, arguably, that should be differentiated from the movement. I don't think they're synonymous anymore. You could make the argument they were up until about 2004 or 5.
But I can see how people conflate the two.
So when you have, the party of Aristide signing a joint declaration with a couple of civil society groups that are totally, bought and owned by the United States, along with the PHGK, along with the EDE, Claude Joseph's like one-man party.
Yeah.
It should make people step back and go, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And it's something I've had to come to grips to as well, because I don't want to speak for other people, but I think generally, if you could say that the people who are brought into the Haiti solidarity movement around the coup against Aristide are going to, have unconsciously or not, equate Haitian sovereignty, democracy with Lavalas. And like I said, for a time, that was also Famille Lavalas. And if you haven't carefully tracked the kind of evolution and progression of Famille Lavalas as a party, you may actually think that they're still one and the same, and they're not. And there's been breakaways from Famille Lavalas over time, very early on after the coup, but also, sorry, just 1 second.
No, I'll take it down.
I just had a little visitor in the room.
Yeah.
But later on, you have other politicians breaking away and forming their own parties. Maybe most famously is Moise Jean-Charles, but there are others as well.
Yeah.
And the original leadership of the party, even when Aristide was removed in the U.S., Canada, France-backed coup, there still were leaders left over, but they've since then are no longer in leadership positions. Even when Neptune has retired, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
He was the PM under Aristide.
Yeah.
You have Reverend Jean Just, who himself he passed away, unfortunately. And for reasons I can't explain, Aristide chose Narcisse to take over the party. He gave her his blessing. She herself had been active in the movement, but when that leadership took over, they slowly started moving towards being much more of a just kind of left of center party. They're social democrats. They want investments in social housing and infrastructure and so on, but they're far from being a revolutionary party, let alone a party that really represents the people. And
they're like riding on the name at this point, I find.
Like you see a big generational divide. Like if I'm talking to someone, older millennial or a Gen Xer, for which I sit right on the line between the two, like Lavalas is part and Famille Lavalas is part of any conversation. They kind of center the conversation about Haiti.
Yeah.
When I talk to somebody younger, it's like, why are we spending so much time talking about family Lavalas or the Lavalas movement? It's understandable. They become not irrelevant, but they become just another among several left of center parties.
Yeah.
Who like I don't want to be too critical.
No, but
There was a concerted movement against them. So like the election that brought Martelli to power, they were deliberately excluded from the election. So all the people who point that out, I mean, they're correct. They were deliberately left excluded from the election because they would have won, and they would have won with a huge majority. The next election, it was looking like it was going to be the same thing, but they made the wrong call, and Plateformes, Toutes, and Famille Lavalas decided to run an election they knew was rigged, and everyone said was rigged, again by the United States.
Yeah.
So they kind of legitimized that election that brought Moise to power, Jovenel Moise, and simultaneously made themselves even less relevant on the political scene. So those results aren't particularly important because it was a rigged election, but it's worth noting that Petit, for what votes came in, Plateforme Petit Dessalin had more votes than Famille Lavalas. I don't know if that's meaningful, but I'm just throwing it out there. So we fast forward to now, and if Famille Lavalas has done anything of significance since about 2018, please write me on Twitter. I'd like to know what it is, because they put out these statements that are vague and cliched. They're part of coalitions. They're not part of coalitions. They join in declarations. They don't. They seem to be like all these other political parties in Haiti. And here I'm being specific to political parties and not popular organizations like Molagaf. I want to make a distinction.
Yeah.
But the political parties themselves, who theoretically and intellectually run candidates and try to get seats, that they just every 6 to 8 months reshuffle the deck, put out a declaration that they like democracy, and move on with their lives. Basically. It seems. And the disconnect between them and the Haitian people is just growing every week.
Yeah.
There was a particularly telling interview when Fritz Jean, the president-elect of nominated by the Montana Accord, so not the president at all, but just the Montana Accord's selection for that position in transitional government. He did a tour of Canada fairly recently. Okay. And kind of an offhand comment mentioned that he spends weeks locked up and barricaded in his home, and this is like in a neighborhood that is itself barricaded and locked up, and has thousands of security guards who function like they're armed security guards. They're functionally private police officers for the wealthy, the bourgeoisie. Basically. So there's like a very physical disconnect from all these politicians. His experience, I'm sure, speaks to all these other politicians too. Like, tell me the last time you've seen a Lavalas leader, walking through La Saline or Cité Soleil or Bel Air, like any of these neighborhoods, to speak to or even be close to the experience of everyday Haitian. It doesn't happen. Like, I don't. It's easy for me to say from like my home Montreal, why don't you go wade into like a potentially gang infested area?